answers around, I will get a point if I guess the real answer, and you'll get a point if I pick your answer. All right, here we go. The Nobel Peace Prize is named after Alfred Nobel, the inventor of what?
And give a couple more minutes. I'm gonna give it a couple of more minutes, Jennifer, and then we'll go ahead and begin.
Reveal the answers. Aerodile, dynamite. And the penis pump. Okay. That's Matt's guess, and I know it for sure. You're hoping somebody will win a Nobel Prize for that? Okay. Wow, this is an interesting one. I'm gonna guess dynamite. Let's see. It's dynamite. All right. Oh, Matt. Okay, I get a point. All right. In the 1830s, which food topping was sold as medicine for indigestion? The food topping. Beef. All right. Let's shuffle them around and reveal them. Sprinkles, ginger, ketchup, mayonnaise. I'm just automatically going to say ginger. I don't know that that's a food topping, but I'm going to say it's ginger. What is it? Ketchup. Wow. Quick. I just think like you, that's all. Ketchup. Sprinkles. Do you think they have sprinkles? I'm just not. That's what you're supposed to say. It's a game. Here, have fun. All right. In 1999, a 4-year-old girl turned yellow after consuming too much what? All right. Shuffle them around. And reveal them, please. Okay. Okay. And then that would be you saying Gilbert, I'm sure. Sunny Delight. Okay. Pineapple corn. I think it's going to be pineapple. Let's see. What is it? Sunny Delight. How much Sunny Delight did she drink? All right. Most firehouses were built with spiral staircases in order to prevent what from climbing the stairs. This is an interesting one. Shuffle them around. Reveal. Spouses. One more? Shall we go? There's one more, so we'll do one more. One of the original owners of Domino's Pizza sold his share of the company for what? All right. Let's shuffle them around. Matt is happy with this answer. I can't wait. Okay. NBA tickets. Diamond ring.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Those that don't know, I am Tammy Johnson, and I am the chair of the NAIOP 2020-2021 term Higher Education Council Chair. And today we're hosting another First Friday. And as you know, First Fridays are sessions for us to be able to have the opportunity to earn our PSP points, as well as growth for our office professionals position. The Higher Education Council and the purpose of it is to identify and to focus on the interests or concerns of NAIOP and members and the affiliates of that work in higher education. And as the council members, we provide support and insight on issues specific to higher education, as examples of accreditation, research and grants, students admission, software implementations, funding models, frequent extensive leadership changes, and a whole wide component of higher education which we serve. So today we're hosting another First Friday, and we are in the honor of being in the presence of one of the finest professors at Norfolk State University. Today we'll be holding our session, and the title of it is Stress 101. And I will begin to introduce our presenter, Ernestine A.W. Duncan. Dr. Ernestine Duncan is a professor of psychology in the Department of Psychology at Norfolk State University. She earned her master's and doctorate degrees from Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia. As an academician, Dr. Duncan studies issues related to student success and college preparedness in African American students. She has published one co-edited volume, Diverse Perspectives in College Teaching, during 2014 edition. More recently, her book chapter on Michelle Obama was published in the edited volume, Michelle Obama and the FLOTUS Effect, Platform, Presence, and Agency. Dr. Duncan's additional research focuses on issues related to women, to include mental health and coping and physical correlates of stress. A large body of her work focuses on risk factors and protective factors for African American women and HIV/AIDS. Her current research projects continue to explore the impact of stress on African American women's mental and physical health. Dr. Duncan is the proud mother of one daughter, Courtney, who is a spring 2021 graduate of Old Dominion University, master's degree program in educational leadership. I introduce to you today, and I ask you to welcome and join me in welcoming the Dr. Ernestine A.W. Duncan. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for your introduction. Of course, I gave you some of that information, but the way in which you presented me, I'm just so glad this is recorded because I'll be playing it again so I can feel good about myself. Thank you so much. I would like to thank you and Ms. Timberlake in particular for this invitation. As we stated earlier today, I'm glad that it will hopefully be able to offer something that can be meaningful to those of us who are here today. And I'm going to talk about something that is really important, not generally because it is a hot topic, a buzzword right now, stress, but really our ability to manage stress has a great impact on our physical health. It has a great impact on our psychological health. And in some instances, although this may sound extreme, it is the difference between life and death, because it is how we cope with stress that really helps us to be able to manage so many aspects of our bodies that sometimes we're not even aware of. So I'm glad, and I know that we are working to be finished at about 3:45, if that's correct. Um, and I also would like to invite those of you who are here to be able to participate as we do this, because stress is something that we all experience. Sometimes just waking up in the morning is a stressful event because we're tired and we don't want to do the things that are required of us in that day, but we can't get around it. So this is not anything, it's not a topic that all of us do not experience. I experience it very much, and that informs many times the way in which I put together these presentations. So today our focus is on the stress of relationships. And as I'm sure you all know, stress can come to us in any number of ways. We can be stressed because of what's happening in the world, right? So we're just coming out of the heels of COVID. But how many of you know there's a whole nother stress now that's been associated with that, and it's called re-entry anxiety. There are some people who now, from having been isolated and social distance and quarantined, they have extreme anxiety about returning to work, going back to restaurants. I heard that the Tides, they've opened up their stadium completely, and so they're going to be at full capacity. And for many of us, that's too much. It creates anxiety for us. Or we have people in our homes who may not be social distancing. We know our neighbors may not want to wear their mask. So there's just a number of things that can cause stress for us just based on living in the world that we live in. Then there are stressors that can come to us from things having to do with our jobs. The majority of stress that people report these days actually comes from their jobs. It comes from things like feeling like you don't have enough control. It comes from things like you feel like you have too much to do, not enough time to do it. So we deal with that stress. We deal with the stress of people in our family, our friends, our relationships. So today we're going to talk very quickly, but hopefully in a way that will engage everybody about stress out of relationships. I would like to share my screen. So let me see if I can do that. Okay. Sometimes it works kind of slowly, but let's see. Okay, here we go. So our goal here in talking about managing the stress of relationships is to be able to talk about and to foster more healthy relationships. It's inevitable that men and women are created as social beings. So living life of isolation, it's not really healthy. So we got to be around people to some extent. We've got to interact with people. And so when we talk about managing the stress of relationships, we know that all relationships come with a fair share of stress and conflict, much of which will come and go as the seasons change. We get along with people, and then sometimes that seems real challenging and real difficult. The things that seem to be the major sources of stress in our relationship include feeling misunderstood. You know, many times we have good intentions, but depending upon who we're interacting with, sometimes it's not always perceived in the way that we intended. One of the most critical things about relationships and the stress associated with it is that it involves people. People that we know well, people that we may not know so well, people who are similar to us, people who are different than us, and we can't manage them. We cannot control other people. So we're going to spend some time talking about the different ways in which we interact with people and how being able to identify some of the major challenges in dealing with people, but also having as a takeaway that there are things that we can do to manage our relationships so that they're more healthy. And when they're more healthy, then they're less stressful, and therefore we are healthy. So we're going to start out with significant other relationships. Now, significant other relationships are defined as when we are in a relationship with someone who is important to our well-being. Typically, when we talk about a significant other, we're referring to a spouse. We might be referring to a significant other who we live with and be in a romantic relationship with, but we are not married. But we talk about them as someone who is meaningful in our lives. And of course, again, please feel free to chime in if you have a comment or if you have a question. Now, when we look at significant other relationships, the major conflict in significant other relationships is uncertainty about the future. And a lot of times, couples lately have identified this as one of the outcomes of being in COVID together. There are many couples who have never had to spend as much time together, uninterrupted, in the same space as we've had to do in the last 12 months. And how many of us found out things about people that we didn't know? Might have been married for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but you never were so up close and personal, right? And there were many people who have walked out of the pandemic saying, I don't know if I really want to deal with this, if it's like this. And so that uncertainty around the future is really a stressor for us, because anytime we don't know what's coming next, it kind of knocks our foundation. This is primarily, let me not say primarily, but this tends to be more significantly an issue for women than it is for men. It appears that for women, not having an idea about the future is a little bit more detrimental to our stress and our physical health than it is for men. And there are a lot of reasons for that. On the basis of time, I won't get into it unless we have some time at the end or if there's a question about it. But it really has to do with the way that our brains are set up. And I always want to say that because it may not be as simple as we think it is, or he just needs to get over it, or him saying, or she just needs to think like I think. Our brains are organized so differently based on gender that there are some real clear differences in the way in which we interpret situations. And many times that causes stress in relationships, but we really just need to step back and look at each other through the eyes of what really is. You've probably heard of the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It is based on that actual tenet that there are actually some biological differences between men and women. We can't get around them, that those differences actually speak to the way in which we deal with many things, most things. And unless we understand that, we're bound to butt heads and butt up against each other, but we don't have to. Another source of stress within significant other relationships is conflict. And that is when we have arguments and disagreements with our significant other. Actually, there's data that says 22% of people say that their most significant stress with their relationship is how they disagree, right? Sometimes that has to do with the issues around we disagree. You know, many people have, within a significant other relationship or marriage, you have differences around how you handle finances. Or maybe you might have differences in parenting. It is inevitable that there will be differences, but the issue is, how do you disagree about them? You know, and I know we've heard the saying, we're just going to agree to disagree. Right? But when those conflicts cannot be resolved in a healthy way, that is a significant stressor on a relationship. Another stressor within significant relationships is the lack of support from the other person. Now, we've heard, and I do also have a clinical practice. And in that practice, I do see couples. And many times, men will say things like, well, she doesn't seem to understand me. She doesn't seem to support me. I'm out all day. I'm trying to provide for my family, and she just doesn't get it. She doesn't seem to appreciate it or value it. And again, I'm talking in generalities of people that I've seen. Women, on the other hand, may feel as though their effort is not seen if they are home and they are working from home. It seems sometimes that there are men who think that because you're at home, you're not doing things. But many of us who are at the house, we know that every day you're picking up something, you're washing something, you're fixing something, you're doing something. And when that effort is not appreciated by our significant other, whether we're male or we're female, that causes us some significant stress. We have to really be able to understand what people are contributing to the significant other relationship, and we need to acknowledge it and value it. So I don't know if there are any comments or questions about significant others, because I'm now going to begin to talk about the stress of relationships as it relates to the larger family. Okay, and again, we can revisit questions towards the end. So I like this picture of family, because really what it represents is more what families are looking like today, and that is extended family. You see here there are parents, and so families of a husband and a wife or a significant other couple and their children are now, because people are living longer, we're having to assume care for additional members of the family. So the family is no longer just this fixed number of individuals, parents, children, and maybe a pet, right? Now we're looking at having to care for other people. And so those relationships that are known as family are really based on a sense of loyalty to each other, which is why we care for each other, based on being selfless, based on love, based on genuine care and concern for each other. However, many of us have families where we know that to not really be the description. The loyalty may not be there, the genuine concern for each other may not be there, and people may be other focused. Well, that is a considerable stress for a family. We're often related to people by marriage, by a biological connection, by an adopted connection, but it doesn't always mean that things are going to go smooth. So family stress is defined as a disturbance in the steady state of the family system. Now, the disturbance might emerge from within the family, or it may be something that is impacted from outside, external to the family. But regardless to what it is, so external, it could be like unemployment. Internal, it could be like a divorce or stress and strain between the parents. But regardless to where it comes from, the family is seen as a system. And when any part of that system is out of order, it has a domino effect. It affects, you could say infects, it affects the family as a system. One of the things that we talk about as a stressor, it is the demands on a family, having to juggle responsibilities. I am really happy that my child is grown right now. Because when I think about the past year, and some of you may have experienced this with young children in your home, because schools were closed and we were doing remote learning. So parents had to be parents, they had to be teachers, they had to be cafeteria workers, they had to be multiple, they had to fulfill multiple roles within the family. And it's that juggling of responsibilities. I was actually watching something earlier today where a mother said she used to go in the bathroom and turn the shower on so that her kids couldn't hear her cry. And her crying came from the fact that she just never got a break. Every minute of the day, somebody was calling upon her to do something. And when you're multitasking and using those multiple roles, and then you still are trying to work, that became overwhelming for many parents, male and female. What is important here is when this happens, the main victim within the family is communication. When people are juggling multiple demands, they will sometimes, the saying is they'll get in their feelings. Or how many of us have said, I'm not going to say anything because if I say something, we're going to regret it. Or I'm going to say something that I don't have any business saying. Well, that may be true, but we have to be diligent that we do communicate. We can't just shut down because then that makes matters even worse. Sometimes internal. Well, let me go back. I do want to say something about, but we have to make sure that our communication is meaningful. I think one of the most negative effects of technology today is that it has taken us away from being able to healthily communicate. I can actually be in the house with my daughter and she will text me and say, do you want something to eat? Right. And so it's convenient, and trust and believe I don't walk out in the living room to tell her what I want to eat. I'll text her back, right? But we are actually losing our ability to communicate effectively because we're not talking to each other anymore. So while it is important for us to communicate, I do want to also emphasize that our communication needs to be as meaningful as possible. Many of us have experienced a miscommunication through an email or through a text because we didn't really get the feeling of what the person was trying to impart to us. So let's be careful about how we actually do communicate. Within a family, when there's divorce or separation, this is another form of stress to the family. First of all, we're typically in an uncomfortable state because, I guess to put it colloquially, right now you're not feeling that person, right? And so even being in their presence may put you in a particular way, right? And if there are children and other people in the household, how are we managing it? Are we saying we're just going to not get along and we're going to work this out among ourselves and we're not going to let the family know until we come to some resolution? Or there are other families that say, well, it is what it is. And they will argue openly. They will obviously ignore each other and not speak to each other. And we can trust and believe that those people in the house with us, they know that something is going on, even when we don't say it, because kids watch and they know when things are different. Family members in the household, they can sense when things are different. So it's really important to make a decision about how you're going to manage a separation or a divorce. Again, communicating what you feel is key, but hopefully doing it in a way that is respectful to the other people. because you have to remember, while you may have an issue with the other person, those people in the household may not have that issue, and you want to be fair. Another internal stressor is illness. Many times being sick disrupts the equilibrium of a family because people can't play their usual role. And in addition to that, they generally require care that other people have not had to provide. So say, for example, somebody in the family has surgery. Well, when they come home, they may not be able to go up and down the steps. So it requires you to, could you please bring me something to eat? Or can you help me? And that changes all of the while the kids are doing their homework. I need you to help me. I need you to stop what you're doing and help me. I need to go to the restroom, right? And so illness is another stressor that can impact our families in a negative way. I talked about the external factors, one of them being unemployment and how that can cause stress on a family. But the larger issue tends to be financial problems. And so when there are difficulties meeting the obligations, then it is hard for people to interact in the same way. You want to do certain things, but you're unable to do them because the money's not there. Or you have things that are required, the rent, the car note, the utilities that you can't afford right now. And it's causing the stress and the strain of what are we going to do as a family. Something that's an exciting thing and it's a good thing, but it's nonetheless a stressor is moving. Moving into a new home, the packing up. If you can remember the last time you had to move, it is stressful. The packing, the unpacking, the temporary position that you're in where you can't find anything. For kids, if you're moving into a new neighborhood, it's starting all over again, making new friends. How are you dealing with the relationships that you had in the old neighborhood? You're sad, you're missing them. So being able to manage the stress of a new move is important as well. Finally, the last stressor I'll talk about as it relates to family is an addition to the family, whether that be a new child, whether that be a family member who's coming to stay with us for a couple of months until they get settled into their job and they get a new place. That's a disruption to the equilibrium of the family, and it can cause stress. I'll see if there are any questions or any comments before we move to talking about work stress.
Well, Dr. Duncan, the family stress, when you emphasize about communication, that is a key. And I know when my children were younger and they're on spring break, we take vacations, and I would say, leave your cellular phone home.
Mm.
So, leave it home yet, leave it home. I'll just take mine, it'll be off, but we're going to talk to one another, face to face. And we did it, and they were fine with it. So that is important.
I really applaud you, for doing that, because I'm sure they didn't just leave their phones home. Yay, mommy, we're leaving the phone home. You probably had to put up with a whole lot of, mommy, we want to bring our phones. That's not fair. You got your phone. But you see the benefit of it once you engage in it. So thank you for sharing that. So what about work? Well, let's think about it. In a normal everyday 24 hours, we spend the majority of our waking time in a work relationship. Now, over the last year, we may have been able to work from home, but nonetheless, we were still engaged with work. Research shows a significant correlation between interpersonal contacts on and outside of the job and job stress. When people feel supported in their work environment, then their work is less of a stressor for them. But often we don't feel supported in our work. It could be for a number of reasons. It could be because we feel we have too much work to do. It could be because we may have administration or supervisors over us that seem to have unreasonable expectations. It can be we have very little control. One of the things that used to really frustrate me when I was as a department chair was that I would come in with an agenda of things to do on any given day. And one phone call or one email could throw that whole thing off. So the control that I thought that I had over my work, my responsibilities was out the window. And that is the major stressor that is linked to pretty negative stress reactions in people at work. The fact that we feel like we have little control over our jobs. I know for office professionals, because I watch, there are so many constituents that you have to serve. That alone is overwhelming. You deal with supervisors, you deal with colleagues, you deal with students, you deal with parents, and I'm sure there are many more that you deal with. And you have to keep all of those balls juggling and in the air. Everybody's got to be happy. And sometimes that is an unreasonable and a non-feasible task, but still we expect it of people. And when we expect it of people and they want to do a good job, this is a major area of stress that people really can't manage. And earlier when I did a presentation for office professionals, the best advice that came from them, and I concur, is take your breaks. You're given 15-minute break, take your break, take your lunch. Because what it allows you to do is to reboot. It allows you to recharge. Just like we recharge our phones, just like we reboot our computers. And if you think about it, we do that when either the battery's dead or we do it when the computer is acting wonky and we want it to reset. How about we're no different than that? How about we run out of energy, we get drained, and we need to be recharged? Or how about our resources are so depleted, you got so many tabs open that you start acting wonky and you need to reset. So advice that I have for myself included, for you, for people you know, reset, take a minute, turn the phone off, turn everything, sit in the dark if you need to, but take a few minutes to reset. Some people call it meditation. Some people call it mindfulness. Some people call it yoga. Some people call it taking a walk. I don't mean any harm, but I hope nobody here calls it, I need to take a cigarette break, because that's just making the matter worse, right? But people do use that as an opportunity to take a stress break. Do what you can to minimize your stress at work. The last group of people we're going to talk about are our friendships. We love our friends, but sometimes those relationships, they cause us difficulty, right? And sometimes we need to put up boundaries with our friends. So looking at the time, I got a list of friends that we need to put some barriers and boundaries around, but I'm just going to talk about a few of them. You might identify with that. Does anybody here have a friend that's a promise breaker? Oh, they tell you what they're going to do, that you can depend on them, that you can rely on them. And then when the time comes, they are nowhere to be found. They'll have a good reason and a rationale. But the reality is, in terms of the relationship and the friendship, they've let you down. So that's a stress to our friendship. How about the dramatic friend? The dramatic friend, we really like them because they're engaging. Seems like they always got something going on and they're entertaining. But it's better if we leave the dramatic friend to reality TV, because these people they drain our energy. Everything they go through is the worst that anybody has ever dealt with. If they have a breakup, they're the only one that has ever experienced a breakup. They need you to come by and talk to them. They want to talk to you on the phone for 30 minutes, 2 times a day. We don't have time for that, right? So in their being dramatic, they pull on our friendship and cause us stress. How about negative Nancy or negative Ned? No matter what you tell them, no matter what good news you've got, they've got a way to bring you down. These are the individuals we refer to as seeing the glass half empty. No matter what the situation is, no matter what the condition is, their negativity is contagious. Talk about maybe one more, and that is the competitor. Do you have any friends who, if you do one thing, they did it 10 years ago, or they did it 5 times more intensely than you had to do it? And so you end up just saying, okay, you win, right? You broke your leg. Well, that doesn't compare to the time I broke my leg. And I broke my leg in 8 places. Okay, fine. I didn't even know a leg could break 8 times. But in any case, if that's what you say, you. So our friendships can place a stress on us because they take more from us. We end up pouring out more into the friendship than we do um, being energized by it. And again, there are some others, a bad influence, a know-it-all. And those are the things that can influence us to just feel like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. It may not be that extreme if we put boundaries in place and we deal with these friends in times and spaces when we can. So, leaving today, we're going to talk about what are the things that we can do to foster healthy relationships, because we do enjoy people. We are social beings for the most part. And a lot of times when you hear people who say, I don't need people, it's really based on experiences that they've had where they've been hurt by others or when someone has betrayed them, and they've learned to use that as a coping mechanism or as a defense. So we need to commit to strive for healthy relationships, no matter what difficulties may arise. We may need to understand that now is not the time, but maybe check with me a little bit later, or maybe I don't need to say anything right now, but I will say something later because I'm invested in this relationship and I want to see it flourish. We also need to be respectful, even when we feel like we may not be respected. Sometimes it is better to not say anything at all or to leave the situation when you feel that you've been disrespected, because it is only going to incense the situation if we keep trying to raise them one. I know as office professionals, you get a lot of emails. How many times have you had to put an email away or pin it because you know if I respond to it right now, I am not going to be respectful? And that is a healthy coping strategy, but we can also do it in our face-to-face interactions. Right now, I don't feel like you're being respectful to me, and so I'm gonna not say anything, or I'm gonna go upstairs right now, or I'm going to my office right now, and we can pick this up later, right? Another way that we can have healthy relationships is to take good care of ourselves. Now, here's what I'm talking about, and this is particularly important for women, although I do see some men here with us today. So this is universal, but women seem to be the biggest culprits of not taking care of ourselves because we tend to take care of others first, right? But if you've flown, you've known when you sit through that intro, put your mask on your oxygen mask on yourself first, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to you run out of oxygen, you're not going to be able to put oxygen on the people around you. So we need to take care of ourselves first. We cannot give what we don't have. So it's important for us to get adequate rest, to eat well, to do those things that we need to do so that we feel fulfilled. It is important for us to develop a small circle of support. Who are your go-tos when you know that you're overly stressed? That they can be there for you. It may mean coming and sitting with the baby for an hour. It may mean running to the grocery store for me because I can't get out the house right now. It may mean listening to me on the phone for 10 minutes. Okay, I'm not going to be the dramatic one, but I need to talk for a few minutes. So this allows us to be able to fill ourselves up because you cannot pour from an empty cup. Make regular and emotional deposits. It is important for us to validate, for us to encourage, for us to stroke, and for us to appreciate the ones that we love. We love. It is important for us to, that's where you avoid what we talked about in the significant other relationship, where people feel like there's a lack of effort, right? Let me know that you recognize what I'm doing and you value it. Another thing to do for healthy relationships is to make sure that we connect with people. Now, we know that that means touching base with, that means reaching out to, but once we do that, there are things that we can do to enhance that, like make eye contact, pay attention to, and show affection in instances where we know it is appropriate. A lot of times we minimize the importance of touch. Sometimes just holding a hand, right? Or touching a shoulder to show support. Do you know that that causes physiological changes in the body when you are stressed and your stress hormones are flying everywhere? Just a physical touch can reduce the amount of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, in your bodies. We can also accept others as they are. Spending a lot of time trying to change people is useless because the only people that we have control over and that we can truly change, the only person is ourselves. So, to the extent that you can overlook someone's weaknesses, now don't get me wrong, there are some things that are violations of our integrity. And I am in no means asking that you overlook that. But if I have a friend who she says her husband smacks when he eats, right? And it bothers her to no end. But the easy fix for that is we can eat with the music on, it'll minimize the smacking, or we don't really have to sit at the table and eat every time. So there are ways around how we have a healthy relationship and don't blow things to a proportion that makes it difficult. How about maintaining healthy boundaries? We can't be everything to everyone all of the time. Sometimes I need me time. I need to go in the bathroom or to my sacred place. See, that's how men caves were established. Men needed a place where they could go watch the game uninterrupted or smoke their cigars without anybody coming in. And for women, our women caves typically have been the bathroom. But if you utilize that time for self-care, but your self-care is what you find fulfilling. So it could be reading a book, it could be listening to music, but it means you're not on all the time. And that's why I like so much what Johnson said. Don't take your phone. The phone puts us on access 24 hours a day. There are people who sleep with the phone in their beds because they don't want to miss a text. But our bodies weren't designed for that. Give yourself some boundaries, not just the boundaries we talk about with people, but boundaries you set for yourself. Conserve your energy. First of all, that means making sure you got energy. So go to bed and get sleep. The world would have us to believe that we can function on 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. Not true. There's research, look it up. that says our bodies require 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night because sleep is restorative. There are things about our cells that are restoring when we are asleep. Do you understand? That's why babies sleep so long in their early life, because their cells and their bodies are growing. And it does that during the sleep period. So we need to sleep. And then in doing so, we need to conserve our energy so that we don't peter out. Live your truth. What is your mission statement about your life? What is your purpose? What is your passion? Define what that is and then assess yourself. To what extent are you meeting it? Because when you're meeting it, it affirms your purpose, it affirms your being, and it affirms who you are. I thank you for this time. I would like for you to take those tips, but also for you to accept that stress is a response. The very same thing that stresses us, we could also make a choice not to be stressed by. And in making a choice to not be stressed by it, we've heard our mothers and our grandmothers say, I ain't gonna let it worry me to death. That's a beautiful statement. Because stress has a negative effect on our bodies and it has a negative effect cumulatively on our health. It can become a vicious cycle where we begin to get pessimistic and we have negative thought patterns. We each owe it to ourselves and to the people that we love to exercise stress management so that we can improve the quality of our life as well as the quality of our lives. So please make the calm choice. Thank you for the time that you allowed me today. And of course, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Ernestine Duncan. Let's give her a hand. You all take yourselves off of mute.
Thank you.
This was wonderful. Look, Dr. Duncan, you preached today. You told the truth.
Yeah, it's important. And but we can change our narratives. There are people that are living with hypertension, to some extent, diabetes, the management of glucose, that we're living with coronary heart disease. We're living depressed, anxious, and we don't have to. We don't have to.
You don't have to. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And the key thing you say is take care of yourself. We have to take care of ourselves. Yes. And in the comment box, in the chat box, I have a thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Duncan. Wonderful, wonderful information. Just take the little time and the little things just to revive yourself. Like you say, it's so important. It is so important.
It's so important and it's so necessary.
Yes, it is necessary. We thank you so much. And someone says important information to help us do better in these trying times. Yes. And that is the truth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We thank you. It was an honor, a pleasure having you. And so this is to everyone else, this is our last First Friday session for the 2020-2021 term. But the good news is that I will still be sitting in this position as the higher education chair for the 2021-2022 term. And we're going to continue our First Friday sessions. And it was really proposed by our professional development coordinator, Jennifer Lewis. So we're going to continue this for the next year. The sessions has been very informative, very good. And we're going to take it, hold on to it, utilize it, and run with it to help us to have a creative and healthier life. So again, thank you all for attending. I do want to emphasize and give a reminder out to everyone regarding the NAIOP conference that is scheduled to be held this July the 12th through the 15th. If some of you are able to attend in person, it will be held in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and I hope you all have registered or plan to register. And also our Higher Education Council meeting will be held before that time, June the 25th, and that will be virtual as well. And you all will get a notice about that. I want to thank you all so much for your support this year with the First Fridays, just support with attending the meetings. I like to thank those that are on committees. I know I have Janet, I know Nikisha, and also Jennifer. I thank you all so much, and the rest of the Higher Education Council members. Are there any questions or anything, any good news, anything you would like to share? No? Okay, well, you all be on the lookout. We have those noted that attended this session. So be on the lookout because Ms. Jennifer will be sending the certificates for you all attended. And also this session has been recorded by Jennifer, and it will be placed on the website, the NAIOP website, under Higher Education Council. And you'll be able to get there, naop.org, and go under resources, go under Higher Education Council, and then key on professional development, and you'll all be able to listen to those sessions. We're going to continue to have those up this year. And you're welcome, Jennifer. She says it's been a great year. And she was going to get those certificates and a link to the website for download the record. Okay, that's for me. All right. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you all. You all enjoy the remaining of the day and your weekend and the remaining of the summer. Happy Friday to you. Thank you.
Same to you.
Bye. I hope you all enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mr. Edward.